Do you think life is better with or without God? Whether you're a theist or an atheist, we would love for you to jump in the room and tell us why you think God is the greatest way to live, or if you think that life is better without God. We just want to know what you think and why. The link to the open room is pinned in the comments and in the info. The Deconversionist starts right now. Welcome back, everybody, to the Deconversionists. I am your host, Alan Bondar, aka the Unraveler, and tonight we have a special guest with us, Jim Barrows. Welcome,
hey,
Jim.
How's it going?
Great, man. We're so glad to have you. In case you're wondering why Elliott's out tonight, everybody, he has had an appointment and just wasn't able to make it, but he will be back next Tuesday for our continuation of the Tuesday nights shows at 6 p.m. Eastern. 5 p.m. Central. So anyway, Jim, you get to be a co-host on the first Tuesday night episode. Look at that.
Oh, hey. Wow. Well, hopefully we get some good folks coming in and we can have some good conversations. And if not, I think you and I will have some pretty good conversations. So
I agree. I mean, how fun will it be to just figure out what you and I think about life with or without God? And I'm sure we've got lots to share. But before we do, just let everybody know that's in the chat and joining in. The comment or the link to the room is pinned in the comments. It's also in the info. We encourage you to hit that and hop in the room. We don't care if you're a theist or an atheist. We just want to hear from you because this is an exciting opportunity for us to hear what's going on in your life. Is life better with God or is life better without God? In fact, we have a poll that we're doing tonight. We are interested in your thoughts. Life is 1, better with God, 2, better without God, 3, the same with or without God, or 4, undecided about life regarding God. Cast your vote so we can see by the end of it what the numbers look like. We're just curious. So that'll be up for just a couple minutes and then I'll hide it, but just try to remember what they are. Just put the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 based upon your option in the comments, and that will start to move those bars so we can kind of see what's going on. Jim, let's start with you then. Is life better with God or without God? Or the same?
Without. One, I have more time on Sundays. But if we get less facetious than that, there is so many things that go with being a believer. You anchor yourself to the beliefs and morals of an Iron Age book whose people didn't know where the sun went, whose ideas of morals are not what we have today. We can go through an entire list of things that the Bible thinks is perfectly okay, and yet today we consider those things to not be okay. And I'm not even, and we just leave slavery completely off the table if you want. We can just talk about how the Old and New Testament treats women, things that we no longer believe. And then there's the whole, let go, let God will sort it out. That is just kind of that enforced helplessness of you can't do anything. It's all in God's hands. Once you take charge of your life and you start doing, I think things get better. Actually, I don't think I know, because that's what's kind of happened in my life is I stopped letting go and letting God and took some responsibility for what was going on in my life. And that helps quite a bit. Blaming demons and blaming everything but yourself is just ridiculous. I also found that I let go of a lot of my tribalism. My United States is a Christian country, and that kind of tribalism that hurts so much of the world right now. And it just not true. We're all on the same planet. What we do here affects everybody else, and you just can't get away from that. So yeah, it's much better without having being rooted in something that's Iron Age here in 2026.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just throw this out there. This is, I mean, for me also, life without God, way better. Like, not even a comparison. It's not even close. But there are many reasons just personally for me that it's better, just because I get to live a free life and I'm not restricted by the rules of religion anymore. And for me, it's far more exciting to create my own purpose in life than having it dictated to me by some sovereign God that says what it has to be. I've enjoyed it so much more. I don't even have the fear that a lot of people do, or the idea of like having pointless life or hopelessness because we just die at the end. To me, that's given my life more meaning and purpose, because I don't have to sit around and worry about what's going to happen to me, if I'm going to be miserable at the end, or if God's going to punish me. I'm all right with this. Like, I'm like, hey, this is great. I literally, like, I'm practically invincible, because if I die, I won't know anyway. It just won't matter. Right. So
yeah.
So I get to do what I want to do, and it just doesn't matter. Like, it's great. But what it's also done for me is it's helped me to see other people in a far greater light than I was able to as a Christian. For example, we're in Pride Month this month, and I absolutely advocate for those in the LGBT community. I think that they have every right to be a human and to do what they want with their bodies and with their lives just as much as I do. And it is one of the things that Christianity did was restrict me from being able to see that, because I had to condemn that kind of behavior. Even though, like, I would try to soften it as a pastor and be like, well, I can't condemn you, but I don't condone your actions either, as if that made the difference. But anyway, so that freed me. And it surprises me how many people leave Christianity and still hold on to that tension, still can't seem to let go of that issue and free people to just have their own rights to do what they want. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's because deconversion is a process, and a lot depends on, how deep in the rabbit hole you went, so to speak. Metaphorically speaking, about going into that rabbit hole. But like for me, I say I wandered out of my Catholicism. I didn't have that crisis of faith that so many people have left the faith have. I just kind of went, yeah, I'm an atheist, and never looked back from there. So I had a very different experience. But I know a lot of people, they have to figure out all of the bundle of beliefs that has to go with being whatever version of Christian you happen to be, because not all Christians think that being gay is a problem. I think those folks are more biblically oriented, because again, you got to go back and read the original and understand the words in context to realize that their concepts of things are not our concepts of things. And so if you're trying to apply modern usages of words to then, you're going to screw it all up. Which is another problem, right? Is you don't have to go and know what is going on 2,000 years ago to figure out, oh yeah, they were really just talking about a particular act, not necessarily gay the way we think about it. And the Middle Eastern societies were one of the few around the world that actually had a problem with LGBTQIA. The Greeks certainly didn't seem to have much of a problem, although they had. That's not entirely true either. But, we have many other societies that didn't have a problem. Two-spirited people and things like this, and the Native Americans. I think the Pacific Islanders also had many of the same things. So now you've bound yourself to a particular culture and what that culture believed during the Iron Age. None of that makes any sense. We know now that the way that most Christians treat the LGBTQIA community doesn't do them any good. It certainly doesn't convince the LGBTQIA community that they're not LGBTQIA. It doesn't convince them that Christianity is right. What it does do is increase the likelihood of suicide among that population. So you're forcing them to create into an even greater sin according to your own beliefs, by doing the things that your God tells you to do. How does that work, right? So yeah, you've got to untangle it all, and you got to realize, if the only reason that I think that there's something wrong with being gay or being trans or queer is because some pastor told me, sometimes it takes a while to unpack that. I know there's a lot of complaining that atheists are all left wing, and it's like, well, we didn't all start there. Many of us were ultra conservative Christians. And I wasn't, but many were. And you unravel things as you go. You can't just give up everything. You got to figure out what is based on reality and what isn't. Because Christianity, all religions, enforce tribalism. The in-group, those who are part of your religion, the really in-group, those who believe exactly as you do, and then the out-group, and everybody who doesn't believe that. So it just, sometimes it takes people longer than others to get to a place where they go, oh yeah, that's just because of what I was taught as a young Christian.
Yeah. Well, listen, maybe you're watching the show and you're like, hey, I have some thoughts on this issue right here, and you want to call in or hop in the room and talk to us about it. Perhaps you're a Christian or a theist in general that has a view from your holy book that tells you that homosexuality is a sin and is wrong, and life with God is better because of that. Come talk to us about that. Let us have a conversation. Or if you got out and maybe you're struggling, you're saying, yeah, I'm out, but I don't understand why you guys still now why you guys think it's okay. I don't think it's okay. Still call in. Let's have a conversation about that. We can talk about anything tonight because the conversation's all about whether life is better with or without God, and that can pretty much go anywhere. So we would love for you to call in. Jim, we had a question on the floor, and I don't always take questions from the floor just if it seems to fit the moment. But I'll always take the super chat. So if you guys want to throw in some super chats to support Skeptic Haven, that'd be awesome. But here's what somebody said from Aaron Mac BF said, I just have a question. Why is it so common to see religious debates centered around atheism versus the Christian Abrahamic deities? There is never a discussion of other worldviews. It's as if Christians, next comment, just ignore
world religions. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to quickly say that is not true. One of the reasons why I don't spend a lot of time talking about the other ones is because I was a former Christian. So for me, it's just natural to talk Christianity. But as a Christian, when I was a Christian, I feel like I was able to demonstrate that there were no other gods anyway. So I had already defeated, so to speak, all the other gods. The only one that was left was Yahweh. And so once I got out, it was like, what's the point of talking about the other ones? They don't exist anyway. So that was kind of my thing. So that's why I spent a lot of time on it. But I can tell you for sure, Jim has had plenty of conversations that weren't focused on God or Yahweh in the Bible. Why don't you talk about that, Jim?
Yeah. So, on like Atheist Experience, when we have a Muslim co-host or host on, we get more Muslim callers. I have had Muslims after a show contact me at 1:00 in the morning on Messenger to come and join their show. My response was, if you guys are really interested in having a conversation with me, you wouldn't be trying to contact me at 1:00 in the morning after the show I just did. You'd be you'd be setting up a time for me to do it. And I'd be willing to do it at 1:00 in the morning if you're on the wrong side, if you're on the other side of the world. But this is not the way to do it. And most Muslim apologists are horrible these days. I think they were better at one time, but the current crop of them just seems to be horrible. But, I'm on call-in shows, just like here. So if you want to talk about Islam, go ahead, pop into chat. If you want to talk about Baha'i, I have talked at great length with somebody who is a Baha'i believer, who used to come to the Free Thought Library on show days back when we were doing those live in studio. I've had conversations about Buddhism, which is an atheist religion. Most Buddhists agree with that. I think there are a few that may not, but Buddhism is an atheistic religion. There's no real God there. So I've had conversations with other people, but the fact remains that this country, which is awake during the times that I'm doing these shows, and most people are doing these shows, is still 70% Christian, and that's down. It used to be 90, now it's 70. So we're making inroads. But if and most people, when they say, well, we only talk about Christians, you should talk about other people, are generally trying to shut us up. And that's not going to work. If you want to hear about other things, then bring it up.
Right.
We don't dictate the topic very often. I mean, we are here trying to generate some conversations, but at the end of the day, I'm not an expert on Islam, but it's kind of the same belief. So if you want to know why we don't talk about Christianity, have some of your Muslim or Buddhist or Shinto or whatever your religion is friends call us, and we'll talk to them too. We don't care.
Right on. Jim, we do have somebody behind the scenes here who wants to pop in the room. We have Andrew Frederick. Andrew, question for you. You're driving right now. Is there a way that you can pull over somewhere to talk, or call us back when you are pulled over? Just don't want to take a chance with you driving and us having a deep thought conversation.
No, I can't. I don't make any money when the wheels stop rolling.
Yeah, I know.
It looks like you're in an 18-wheeler and a tractor, so.
Yeah. I called in before. We've spoken before.
Yeah.
Do you recall?
Yeah, I do. And you were in the car the first time, and we said that we don't really want to do this in the car anymore, because I just don't want to be the one that causes an accident. So, Andrew, when you have a chance, if you can pull over somewhere, we'd love to talk to you as usual. But I just like to play it safe and not do that. Sorry, man. But we love talking to you always. So feel free to call.
Especially in something rolling 70,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's a little dangerous. You just need to focus your eyes on the road. So anyway, man, we do love you, though. I love when you call, because you're always a great person to talk to. But that's just something we're gonna pass on tonight. No driving when you talk. So talk to you soon, buddy. Give us a call back. Well, that's a bummer, because I really do like Andrew. He's a great conversationalist. Yeah. But next time.
Yeah, I also agree with the Trinity is made up thing. We had that conversation before we got started.
In the comments.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's logically impossible. That's not the way logic works. And saying that God can do anything because he created logic is just dodging the problem. But anyway, what else were we talking about?
As I was telling you behind the scenes, this is an interesting topic, Jim, because I happen to think that there is a logical way to make sense of a triune God, but I'm open to being proven wrong. But that, we had just 30 seconds to throw that around behind the scenes, so we'd have to have a deeper conversation about that. But I'm not that worried about defending that, because I don't believe God exists anyway, so I don't even think it's a possibility.
Yeah, it's just one of the many things that makes no sense, and that you have to twist your mind around in order to get to, that God exists. Among many things, like you have to ask yourself, if a woman doesn't bleed the first time she has sex, does that mean she's not a virgin? And the answer is, well, only, if I remember the numbers right, about a third of all women bleed the first time they have sex. So now you're condemning a woman to being stoned to death for something that only occurs in about a third of all women. You would think your God knows better than that, but apparently he doesn't. And that's a problem, right? And that's something else you have to worry. You have to go in and figure out for yourself as to how you're going to deal with that particular conundrum. Right. And there is no way to deal with it, right? It's a fact. If a biological fact that comes into play. There's the whole bit about if a woman is assaulted in a field, there's no blame to her because she cried out and there's no one to hear her. Whereas if she's assaulted in town, she must have wanted it because she didn't cry out. Or if she had cried out, people would have responded.
Right.
And that's a load of bullshit, right? Not all women are going to cry out or scream or otherwise attract attention while they're being assaulted. This is just basic human psychology. So, got to deal with that, right? You got to reconcile modern understanding of psychology and how people react in certain situations in order to figure out, is this still biblically, is this still okay? What's the morals here? And again, we haven't even, we'll just stay off unless somebody brings it up, slavery. And we don't have to deal with slavery to ask these questions about what kind of things do we find moral today that God says is okay, but we say, no, it's not, so.
Right.
Go ahead.
I just finished a debate, conversation/debate with a friend of mine. It was seven rounds we did, and this past one we were talking about Numbers 31 and Deuteronomy 21, and in relation to what you were just talking about, some of the things, these laws that would mandate the stoning of somebody. You stone women, for adultery, you stone children just for being unruly. And it was mind blowing to me that the dance that he had to do to maintain that God is still doing the right thing somehow, because he's just working with people as they understand life. And I asked him, I said, hey, if you were living at that time, would you stone your wife if you found out she wasn't a virgin? And his answer was yes, I would, because I wouldn't know any better. And I was like, I'm floored by this, because I'm like, well, even cavemen know better. Like you don't, like, I can't even fathom thinking there was ever a time, ever, when anybody at any time with any amount of knowledge whatsoever could possibly think to themselves, I think I'd like to be stoned someday. Like, nobody would want to be stoned. In what world do you think that you would think at that time, yeah, sure, I think this was a great idea because I wouldn't know any better? How would you not know any better? That is absurd to me. Like, I just don't get it. And yet these are the commands of your merciful God in the Bible, to pick up stones and throw them until the shit is completely beat out of them, and they're just begging a stone to smash them in the skull so it would kill them. That's how brutal it is. But this is what you're doing to children just for being disobedient. Like, it is mind-boggling to me that the dance you have to do to say, well, if I was them, I wouldn't know better, and God was just doing the best he could to work with them, and so I would do it if I was. Are you serious right now?
Yeah. And we can get to a slightly less serious topic that's still related, is what can you eat? God, as a biblical literalist, and it's not clear what you can eat, because there are Old Testament passages that say you can eat anything. There are Old Testament passages that restrict what you can eat. And if God can restrict what you can eat, why can't he ban stoning people to death? Why can't he say, hey, women don't always cry out when they're assaulted, so even if they're assaulted in town, they may not? He could have done that. These are the laws that are supposed to be coming straight from him. He's the only one who can adjudicate thought crimes, so why does he leave thought crimes up to humans in the 10 Commandments? Coveting thy neighbor's wife or goods, or however you want to look at that, that's a thought crime. How in the world is anybody supposed to prove what you were thinking? And you can't. But yet, here we are.
Surely there is a Christian that is listening thinking, oh, I've got an answer to this. I can tell you exactly why these immoral things seem to be in the Old Testament. And in fact, it gets even worse when you get to the New Testament, because Jesus introduces eternal punishment. What? How could, now you went from just stoning to being stoned forever, basically, like never, ever ending torment. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Or for those who just believe it's annihilation. Okay, great. That's what we think as atheists. But I mean, what then do I need God for? Like, what's the benefit? Like, what's the draw? I'd rather not worship this immoral God if I'm just going to die anyway. It just doesn't add up. But, I would love for a Christian to call in and tell us why they think life's better with God, because this is what life is like with God, dancing around these horrible texts and justifying the immoral commands of God.
Yeah. And then because God gives you a recipe for life, it just works like a recipe for a cake. That recipe is only going to, if it's a recipe for chocolate cake, that's all you're going to get is chocolate cake. What happens if you want an apple pie? We have AI coming up today. Where in the world do you find a biblical principle that will deal with the complexities of us creating a sentient mind? And AI right now is not sentient. You're not going to convince me it is, and I can probably convince you it's not, having worked with it extensively as a software engineer. But you don't have that because you don't have principles, right? Christians say there's objective morals. Okay, what are they? Because is it objectively wrong for somebody to make fun of a prophet? Because God sent bears to kill them, and they were boys, and boys will be boys, right? That's Christians' excuse for why, men sexually assault women. Boys will be boys. That's the excuse that we hear, especially if it's a pastor. How do you get to anything that is modern and modern problems from the Bible? I just don't see how you do it, because there are no principles there. It's all do this, don't do that. It's all just chocolate case recipes, and we're in a world where apple pies exist, and ice cream, and Snickers bars, and Cokes. There's recipes for everything else, but the only thing the Bible does is, oh, look, here's chocolate cake. That's what you got to have. There's no way you can derive principles from anything in the Bible. It's just too chaotic and crazy.
Yeah. So tonight we are doing a poll. If you don't want to jump in the room, at least take the poll. We would love to hear from you. Help balance out these lines. So far, life is better without God is winning. So just type in 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one do you think? Is life better with God? Put 1. If life better without God, put a 2 in the comments. Is life the same with or without God to you? Put that in the comments, number 3. Or put a number 4 if you are undecided about life regarding God. Let's see how this poll goes tonight. Be interested to see what the numbers are by the end of it. So just drop those numbers in there, and we'll see what the poll is like. So Jim, it's unfortunate that you have the laws and the commands that God is ordaining, and Christians constantly defending them and trying to justify how they would have still obeyed God and thought this was wonderful. And it's fascinating when you get to a view like slavery, for example. It's a no-brainer. We've heard it a million times, the discussions about it in the Old Testament. We know that it's immoral. We know that it's chattel slavery. And I know that Christians will try to say, because they obviously don't know the texts. And they're like, well, no, it's not chattel slavery. It's the good kind of slavery. As if there is a good kind of slavery. I mean, I don't even understand that. That doesn't compute with me. Like there's no good kind of slavery. Anytime you own somebody, that's not good. Like I just don't understand that. But at any rate, so that's just going to the Old Testament and seeing the problems with it. But obviously, the advocates of slavery in America, they actually took those from the Bible, their views from the Bible, and invoked it here. And eventually, yes, Christians, some non-Christians, had a big part in removing slavery, and that's great. That's all fine and good. But it goes to show that it's not because they're pulling this from the Bible, because obviously you can go either way with the Bible, apparently, if you're just interpreting it however you want to. But if you're going to be honest with the text, it definitely promotes and endorses slavery. There's just no question about it. But somehow we managed to get better than the Bible just by having a morality of our own. Like it just seems like we are far more moral without the Bible than we are with the Bible. Would you agree with that?
Well, so on LinkedIn, somebody put a post that who's with Trump about deporting and not funding food and medical care for illegal aliens. And I says, no, I don't, because as an atheist, I'm a better Christian than you. And I think that's true. I do support Medicare and Medicaid and food stamps for anybody who is living inside the borders of the United States, legal or otherwise. I think people should be able to eat. That seems to me to be pretty basic. And nobody can point to me anywhere in the Bible where Jesus or God says only for those who are here legally, right? He feeds everybody. Believers, non-believers, Jesus fed the multitudes. So where do you get this from? This hatred of human beings so much that you're willing to say, no, you don't get food because I don't like the way you came across the border. It doesn't make any sense. And then there's all the admonitions in the Bible about how to treating foreigners among you well. And yet Christians never do. Not at least those here in the United States don't. They've made it illegal to put water out for people who are crossing the border. Why? Oh, make it harder. No, you're condemning people to die. They're coming across whether you want them to or not. The only thing you can do is deal with them as human beings. And so religion requires you to have this level of tribalism that means you're not treating people as human beings first and everything else second. And that's a problem.
Yeah, totally, man. It's funny. I seem to be bleeding over here profusely. I can't figure out where it's coming from. I think God is stoning me with invisible stones. I'm not too sure. I'm pouring the wrath of God right now for talking about this. I don't know, but that is really weird. I think it's starting to slow down. But if anybody was wondering why I'm like fidgeting over here, it's really weird. It looks like it's slowed down a little bit. So I caught most of what you said there as I was bleeding to death over here. But what other things make life better without God, Jim?
I have more friends now than I did as a Catholic. I don't have to depend on. I don't care what the Pope says about anything. When he says stuff that's good, I can go, yay, well done. And when he says stuff that's stupid, I can go, you're an idiot. I don't have to accept him as being, infallible. And I don't have to accept the logic that goes behind it. I think that's my biggest problem with most religions is that I don't have... coming out, not being a Catholic anymore, not being a Christian anymore means that I can think critically about everything. I don't have to accept anything on faith, on just believe until it becomes true in your mind. I don't have to do any of that bullshit. And that's exactly what it is. I don't have to substitute my own ability to critically think for some Iron Age book that doesn't know that the world is a sphere, that doesn't know where the sun goes, that thinks whales are fish and that whales can swallow human beings.
Yeah.
None of this stuff do I have to believe. I don't have to believe that what God says is good just because he says it. I can ask the very important question: what makes being LGBTQIA bad? What makes not being a virgin on your wedding night bad? What is the problem there? What is the actual moral? Just because God says it is doesn't make it so. Because God says a lot of stuff that isn't good.
I'm going to pause you for just a second. Ben Jaminjo asks if we want him to pop in to ask a semi-philosophical question. Of course. You're welcome to call in about anything. So go ahead and hop in the room and we'll bring you in. We'd love to talk to you. But anyway, you can keep going. I just wanted to make sure he knew he could hop in.
Yeah, no. It's those things that you can now do. You can now look at actual evidence and accept things on evidence. You don't have to accept things just because somebody said they're true. You don't have to accept them because the Council of Nicaea decided the Trinity exists and then waved their hands and said it's a mystery. You don't have to do any of that. You can just go, oh, you're going to wave your hand and say it's a mystery? Guess what? I don't have to believe you. Right. As soon as you hear that, there's bullshit. Your bullshit detector should go off every time somebody says, well, it's a mystery we don't understand.
Yeah. I was just talking with my wife the other day, some of the things of my upbringing and stuff in a Christian family. I was always the one pushing the envelope with questions. Like, if things didn't set right, I had to figure it out. Like, I wasn't content to just be like, well, this is just what I've always believed. That just doesn't work for me. So I journeyed all over the place in theology, and until I ended up with full preterism and then eventually atheism. But I never sat still because my mind was always questioning. I always had questions. Right. But I was raised in a home where when I would bring up these tough questions, they were often suppressed. And I feel like a lot of times it was because my parents didn't have answers to the tough questions. And instead of looking for them, the questions they knew the questions were going to threaten their belief. And so rather than search for the answers, the only answer I would get is, well, you're just always trying to find a fifth leg to the cat or something like that. Or, trust the Lord. Why are you always trying to look for things that aren't there? We just have to trust the Lord. It was that kind of thing. It's just shut your mind off and just believe, because God is real. We were never allowed to really question. Like we were allowed, I suppose. It wasn't like I would be spanked for questioning or anything, but I was never given the answer. I was never even told how to get an answer. We were just shut down with just trust the Lord. That was, and I think that's one of the greatest things I find about being an atheist is I no longer have to let that guide me. Like even though I was still pushing the limits until I finally got out of Christianity, in the back of my mind, it was just the question of God's existence just never was there. Like you just kind of like push that one away. You just hold on to it. At least for people like me, who was a pastor and my livelihood depended on it. So I wasn't about willing to really entertain it, even though I'd say I did. After I lost my church, it became a lot easier to wake up and be like, well, what am I doing? Right. But at the time I didn't even know I was suppressing it. It's just, those are the kinds of things that just happen. Joseph, I'm going to ask you to put your camera on, if you don't mind. We definitely like to see you face to face on this particular show. It's just more enjoyable for us, and that's why we do it like this. So if you could throw your camera on, we'd appreciate it. We'll bring you in. Joseph, you are on stage now. Can you put your camera on for us and your mic? Joseph, your mic is on mute, and so is your camera.
Oh, can you hear me? Give me 1 second.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Give me one moment.
All right, no problem. Take your time to do that. But we are glad to have you join us here. Thank you for calling in, or hopping in, I mean.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second.
Sure thing.
Set my camera up.
In the meantime, while you're doing that, I'll pop the widget back up again. Everybody, here's where we are with the numbers. We got 50% saying better without God, and we have a split decision on life is better with God and life is the same with or without God. Whoever put that one, life is the same with or without God, I would be very interested to talk to you, because that's fascinating. I'm struggling to know how life can be the same with or without God, but by all means, hop in if you can, and let's have a conversation about that. Let
me see.
All right, we're still working on your camera here.
Yeah, give me.
No problem.
While he's doing that, this is a good chance for me to go ahead and just make some quick announcements. This will buy some time while you're doing that. Tomorrow night, I am doing a special interview with Ember, from Better Than Ember. And this is going to be a great conversation piece for podcasters especially, but anybody who's interested in learning, some blind spots that we may have in life, but, she's going to be specifically directing it to podcasting. So join us in, because it'll be a great show. Ember has a lot of knowledge about this, and she's going to be sharing with us some really, really great thoughts on podcaster blind spots. That is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Skeptic Haven. It'll be a special broadcast from the Unraveler channel, though. So keep that in mind when you're looking for it. It'll be from the Unraveler channel and interview with Ember. So that is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And then immediately following is Life After Faith with Drew Bekius and Ethan McLeod. I encourage you to, or it might be Mitchell, I'm not really sure. I apologize for destroying that name, however it works out. But it's going to be a great show. As always, Life After Faith is a great show for those of you who have left faith and have questions with your struggles or whatever, just wanting to talk to somebody who's been there, done that. So go ahead and hop in and give a call to them tomorrow night at 8 p.m. right after Podcaster Blind Spots. And then on Friday, I am having a live debate with James Prest, and that is going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. That's on Friday nights. We are debating the topic, does the Bible promote evidence-based faith? James is taking the affirmative. Negative. The Bible does not promote evidence-based faith. So that is going to be a fun discussion. So join in on Friday night with J.L. Warren being the moderator. And then next week, of course, we're coming back with Elliott's and myself. Is morality possible without God? Can we do it? That's going to be the topic of conversation next week. So bring your arguments. Show us how God is necessary for morality. That is the topic next week. So we hope that you'll come back and join us. lots of stuff going on this week. So thank you guys for being a part of the show tonight. And we've got Joseph. Am I saying that right? Or is it Joseph?
Surprisingly, you're absolutely right.
It was Joseph? All right, perfect. So thanks for joining us, Joseph. Great to have you. My co-host, Jim. What are you calling about? Go ahead and talk to us.
So I have a question. It just came to my head. And it's weird as I'm on YouTube. I go on YouTube and I see your channel for the first time. And it happened to be a group of atheists. And I had this question in my head that I would pose to atheists. So I'm just curious to see how you two would answer it. Because I'm not trying to paint neither one of you into a corner as I ask this question and I pose this scenario, which I think is a reasonable and logical scenario since atheists are all about reason and logic. So you guys are ready?
Yep, fire away.
Yep.
All right, so, and perhaps you guys have heard something like this similar, but maybe not quite
Probably.
like this, most likely, because you guys are much older than I am, but I'm hoping I do something a little bit different that you
Is
guys...
it that obvious?
Yeah.
Well,
And it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with the fact that I've been doing this for over
gotta
10
keep
years
right
and
here.
talking
Yeah,
to
obviously, but
thousands of people. So, and it
Yeah,
has
lots
more
of
to do,
stories.
it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with the fact that I've been doing this for 10 years, longer than 10 years, I think now. Talked to thousands of people, and let's face it, Christians aren't that original. So, you know.
Was that a philosophical question that we're older than you are? Because I got an answer for that.
Yeah, that as well as experience. So I know it's a lot of, we've heard it before. So I try my best to think of something. It might not be super original, but it'll be maybe a little creative. But I could be proven wrong. So
Right,
the
just
question is
go
as
for
follows. So you guys have, I'm sure you guys have ever owned a Rolex watch before, right?
I may
You
have.
want to know with the watchmaker argument?
Well, like I said, I kind of figured you know where I was going to go, but I'm going to go down that road just slightly, but I'm not going to go too far into it because you already kind of know. But
Yeah, it's a
but I'm also-
teleological argument. Yeah.
well, so if you understand, well, have you ever met someone who's created a Rolex watch? Have you ever met them personally? Have you ever met them, or you assume that there's a watchmaker
No, so
behind?
here's the problem you have when you're going to go with the teleological argument, the argument from design. The first problem that you have is that the human brain is a pattern recognition engine, and evolution has selected for someone who sees design in almost anything. Did the bushes move because of the wind or because there's a predator? If you assume it's a predator, you're more likely to survive because you're going to run away from the predator, right? So we select for seeing things that aren't really there and seeing design where there really isn't any. Pareidolia is the technical term for this that psychologists will talk about, our ability to see human faces where there aren't any and these kinds of things. So once you get over that and you start looking at, well, how do we determine what is designed? There's only really two ways to do it. One is to produce the designer and have that designer show you how they did it. Since we're talking about God, produce God. That hasn't happened. So the other way to do it is to take the object you're looking at and compare it to something else that you know to be natural or designed. So if I show you an object that moves by leaping and it has cogs as its primary motivation, is that natural or is that designed? Actual cogs as the primary motivation. It's using. Now, if you say there's a tendency to want to say, well, that's designed because the only time we see cogs is when humans have created them. Except there's a insect called a leafhopper that has the largest leap per pound of any animal in nature that we know of, and it uses cogs, and it's completely natural. So you really need to do a deep dive into things. I can show you some places off of Japan where people will tell you these are steps, And geologists will tell you, no, they're not steps. That's just the way that this particular type of rock breaks. And there's all kinds of these types of things where people will say, oh, this was made by giants. And geologists will go, no, that's just the way this works. So if you're going to make a comparison, one, you need to make sure you're comparing like things to like. So by looking at a watch and going, well, watches are designed, yeah, that's true, but watches also exist inside the universe. So you have to look at other universes, and we only have this universe to look at. So we don't have another universe to compare to see if there are any differences between them, much less a universe that we know to be natural or to be created or designed. We just have this one. And we can't look at what's inside of it and make any determination as to whether or not it's designed or not. One, pareidolia, the way our minds have evolved. And two, if the universe were different, yes, the universe would be different. Whether or not there'd be minds to have this argument or not is depends on the universe. And so the only thing you're doing is saying, well, if the universe were different, things would be different. I agree with that, but it doesn't get you to a God. Does that make sense?
But then you also said, if I'm going to use the watch as the famous watchmaker argument, then I would have to find something that's comparable with that. I wasn't going to go with the general aspect of, oh, there's a watchmaker, then God is the watchmaker. That I wasn't going to. I kind of
that is the argument.
Go with but it wasn't it. You in a way you made the argument for me by assuming that I was going to say that the watchmaker is comparable to a God, but I wasn't even going to go that far. But although I understand the argument in which you laid out, in which, of course, you've thought about that over time and you laid it out. You had the statement. It of course you did, right? You've been doing this for so long, but you said there has to be something comparable to it. So again, I'm not going as far as there's a God. That's a huge leap. Even if I was myself an atheist, I would say, oh, watchmaker God, whoop-de-doo. But you say there has to be a comparable element. So this is the comparable element. And I think it's pretty fair. And I've done quite a bit of research on this. It has nothing to do with God, but has everything to do with understanding that there has to be someone to create the intricacies and the precise fine-tuning of a watch, knowing that. But then when I study the human eye, it is 100 times more fine-tuned and precise than anything that a watchmaker could possibly create. But yeah,
that's not true.
I've never seen.
So humans actually have created vision devices that are better than the human eye. The camera on your phone is better than the human eye, and it is also less complex. It is simpler. There's a lot of unnecessary. Now, I do wear glasses, just like you do. I just don't wear them while I'm on the computer. So those are problems that you. Pardon?
The camera, and I don't disagree with that. However, the camera in which the 1080p and all this high definition is insane. The 4K, what the camera cannot do is perceive the things that if you're married, I'm sure you have a wife, the first thing you notice, wow, she's beautiful. You can't point a camera at a woman and the camera reflects to you how it feels about, for example, beauty or a sunset or something it just points and clicks.
But the eye doesn't do that, right? It's the eye connected to a brain.
Right. That's why. So you're doing the same thing with the camera. When you see a visual, your brain is reacting to it.
Right. And we don't have an AI that can do that yet, although we do have AIs that does a much better job at recognizing objects than the human eye and brain do. They're not sentient yet. That is on the horizon. Don't ask me when. I don't know. I just know that it's coming soon. And the cool thing about modern AIs is they're using the same technology that the human brain does. They're using neural networks. And that is exactly how the brain works. They're pattern recognition engines. And a lot of the problems that we see with AI today are problems that we see in the human brain as well, because they're using the same technology. So you're not really buying yourself into doing any of this by saying that there has to be a creator. No, there doesn't. One of the best things to look at as a software engineer, when I see things the systems that grow up organically without any design, is unnecessary complexity. And when I look at the human eye and I look at the way that a modern camera works, the modern camera is far less complex than the human eye. There's no reason for the human eye to have an aqueous solution in it. There's no reason to have any of that. It's just not necessary, and yet it does. It's not necessary to have the muscles that it needs to adjust focus with the cornea. We don't need that. There are other ways to do it. There's just a lot of unnecessary complexity. And whenever I see unnecessary complexity, we know that there was no element of design added to it, that it grew up organically somehow. And we do this even with human systems. I've seen this with large systems with, Fortune 500 and Fortune 50 companies, where their systems have an interesting amount of unnecessary complexity because nobody designed the systems at a certain point. So you're still not getting yourself anywhere with looking at design, because you still haven't established that the universe is designed.
Well, even with as you say, the inefficiencies or the of the human eye compared to modern technology, there's still have to, in order to create the technology, someone had to been able to have some sort of vision, whether it be actual sighted vision or some sort of vision in their head. I have an idea, by AI or 1080p. That sounds cool. What if I can enhance it? What if I can create these glasses for someone who has terrible vision to see better? So there has to be some sort of vision, some sort of eye, or some sort of process. But the eye is just a physical representation of the vision.
Right. So you're assuming purpose, that things are built with a purpose in nature. And that is simply not the case. That is why you end up with things that are overly complex. Eyes started off, and we see this in the natural world, where eyes are really nothing more than light-sensitive cells. And then over time, they develop to get better at sensing light, because that helps the organism survive, which is why we see such a diversity of eyes. We can even look at individual species and see, oh yes, this species here has eyes, but this species that got into a cave and never got out doesn't have eyes. They've actually de-evolved eyes, and yet they're the same species, and we can tell this genetically. In fact, we can even see the genes that where the eyes are supposed to be there, but because they're recessive and no longer being expressed, the species no longer has them. So we see eyes evolve and we see them de-evolve. So that's not really a thing that makes anything, because one, eyes still exist inside the universe, and we're talking about whether the universe is designed. And so you have to compare universes to universes. Worse for you is, like I said, eyes de-evolve too. And so there is no purpose other than survival of the species. And even that purpose is assigned by us.
Well, it makes no sense for it to be assigned to us if the purpose is
assigned by us.
Right, but why?
Right.
So why would it, if it's assigned by us, what would even inspire someone to assign survival as a purpose if everything is purposeless?
It's how we describe the world, because it's how we describe the world.
How is that something that an AI robot would even, we just want to, that doesn't seem like something we would program. I've seen Bicentennial Man. I thought that was pretty cool. Projection of the future. So, but in order to even relate to the character that Robin Williams played, he had to be something more than human. So, but we had to see that. We have to see, okay, when we see a robot, we see a camera, we don't really relate to that. We see a camera, you point and click, but you see a human being, even with our inefficient eyes. They say, as you know, the eyes are the window to the soul, or something corny like that. But even if you don't believe that, there's something about when you look into your wife's eyes or your children's eyes, there's something that you see in that person's eyes that goes beyond just it's just the inefficient, the eyes are so inefficient.
Yeah, that's what the brain does.
It's more
right. That's not what eyes do. That's what brains do, right? And no, we don't have
those emotions. A brain processes those feelings of.
brain. Yeah,
alone.
a mind is
What's the
a
purpose?
an emergent property of brains. It's what brains do. We can now read a mind up to about 3 seconds before someone actually has a conscious thought. Now it's simple stuff, yes, no, simple words and simple concepts like that. But neuroscientists can now read the mind up to 3 seconds. So there's nothing there that is mystical about having a mind. It's an emergent property of the brain and the way the brain works. So just because we haven't created a human-like brain yet doesn't mean we're not going to. Like I said, we're on the cusp of that, probably within the next century. That's probably about the shortest time frame I'm willing to give it. But we're already seeing that. We see AIs doing things that humans do. We see AIs intentionally lying. We see AIs trying to provide the answer they think the human wants, not the right answer. So a lot of this human-like behavior we're already seeing in the non-sentient AIs that we have now. So again, what you're saying doesn't make any sense, because it seems like to me that you're attributing some mystical element to a mind that just doesn't exist.
Okay, so when you this is, I don't know how you're going to answer, but I'm pretty sure you've thought about it. When you look at your wife or your child, and I'm just going to assume that because you're older and that's most likely the case, you say, "I think I love you," or you just simply you feel the love. Like when you look into your wife's eyes, is it
feelings are
a
emotions.
process?
Feelings are
Okay.
emotions, and we can tell they're controlled by chemicals and by neurochemicals. So it's chemical and neurons that control it. And when you show somebody something they like, you can actually read that reaction in their brain.
Well, is that control?
You
Okay,
can
so if
actually trigger reactions and emotions by hitting certain nerves in the brain.
Yeah.
They've done tests to demonstrate this.
Yeah.
so okay, that's a good point. People can, test and hit the whatever certain parts of the brain to invoke a certain reaction or certain emotion. Maybe someone got into a car accident, they hit this certain side of the brain, and they might be a crier, or they might laugh hysterically about something. But aside from any traumatic experience or some sort of defect at birth or whatever the case may be that triggers that, what other than like what would trigger me to laugh? What would trigger me to cry on command? And it's me activating those chemical neurons that take place in the brain. But what is that me that's activating those, that's triggering that?
Your
What is
brain.
that
How do
me
you
that's
know
triggering?
how do you know it's not the chemicals reacting, triggering you to feel that? So that's where the hard problem of consciousness comes in. We're not sure how it all works yet. What we do know is that we can read the brain up to 3 seconds for simple concepts so far, and that has to do with our knowledge, not with our technology. We can see when people have emotions. We can show them pictures and map those emotional segments of the brain. There is nothing you are suggesting that is unique to humanity. We can do the same thing. I mean, we practice. We don't probe human brains. That would be unethical. So we're using animal brains to do it. There's just nothing that we see that indicates to us that there's anything more than us being meat suits walking around. And we
information over time as well, and it tells and it reacts based on the information that it's developed. And I imagine a lot of that actually happens in the womb, because as the baby's developing in its mother's womb, it also learns sensory reactions that mimic the mother's. So a lot of this is developed. It's not, you don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden have all these emotions.
Right? Because we all have to learn how to even regulating our emotions. You're crying a lot when you're a baby, and you learn how to regulate that. You're doing a lot of things you shouldn't do, but you know how to regulate it. So yeah, you can be taught how to do these things, but it's not just, to me, it mentally doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it to just be, oh, we're just a mother's just chemically targeting a baby to control their emotions. They're just chemically targeting this mass or of atoms that just randomly put themselves together to not doing
No, there's nothing.
inappropriate
There's
things in this
nothing random
situation.
about the only thing that's random in the universe is quantum mechanics. Everything else is not. It's semi-random at best. Is the closest you're going to get to random. The laws of thermodynamics rule, and we are a result of the laws of thermodynamics, whether we want to be or not. We're getting into topics like the hard problem of consciousness. We're getting into solipsism and hard solipsism, and are we brains in a vat? Do we know, free will, and what is free will? And these are problems we haven't solved yet. But the fact that we haven't solved them does not in any way point to anything supernatural.
Well, I'd like to just ask a question here, though, because let's just say that it isn't the brain, and let's just say that we have no clue what we're talking about, and let's just say we're way off, and every scientist is wrong, and we know nothing about how emotions are formed, whatever. What's the alternative? What are you suggesting produces these emotions?
I'm actually not disagreeing with the scientific element of how emotions are produced. It is chemically a process that takes place within the brain. I guess my only question is, aside from manipulating that, which can be done, similar to how a doctor might hit your knee and your knee just moves up involuntarily. But yet, in all of the cases when a doctor is not hitting my knee with whatever that hammer is, I can move my leg up and down like I'm doing now, but it's not. It's a chemical process that's taking place, but there has to be something that is some sort of something, a controller. I'm not trying to say spirit or soul, but something that is controlling the chemical process that's causing my knee and my leg to move, that's causing the emotions in my brain to fire. So it's not excluding the scientific elements and the things that we've been able to uncover as a result of the human body, similar with the human eye, even finding out that it's very inefficient. But that doesn't negate something that is behind seeing, something that is able to perceive these things that the human eye can, that a camera cannot. That only why take pictures? Why even do a video recording of anything in high definition? And if the person observing it is not going to get any use from it, who is the observer?
Oh,
So
we do get
something
use
there.
from it, right? We're pattern recognition machines. When we see a pattern, we react to it, right?
Not exactly, but not the camera, not the technology. The AI is only going to benefit us in a sense.
So
That's why
it still sounds like you're confusing the eye for the eye and brain, the camera for the camera and AI behind it, or the camera and the system behind it. There is a system behind the eye. There's a system behind the camera. And that is a system that we call the brain or the mind.
Exactly.
Right.
So
that's what you have.
You logically admit, you just admitted that there's a brain behind the things that we have created.
Yeah, the brain is the 3.5 pounds of gray matter sitting in your skull.
So we understand that to be the truth. Like, okay, that just makes logical sense. That something had to have created the cameras and the AI and all this technology that we have. That's wonderful. So to go from that makes sense to the human eye being as complex and intricate, even though you say it's inefficient, it still perceives things that's beyond just the picture quality of what we see, is what I'm saying. There has to be some sort of similar watchmaker behind that process as well. Whether you believe there's a God or not. I'm not even talking about a Christian God or Muslim. I'm not. But there has to.
Why does there have to be a creator behind it?
It's the only thing that. So the complexity of the eye, it is there. It's just there, regardless of how you personally feel about it.
Somewhere right there, you stopped yourself, but you said it's the only thing that, and I'm assuming you meant makes sense. And
in the same way that a watchmaker, I can't look at a Rolex and say, "Oh, it just created itself."
What I'm saying is, when you get to a point where you don't have a good explanation, you're willing to say it's got to be something else, and you just draw a conclusion that it's got to be a creator. Why can't it just be, well, we haven't solved that yet, but from what we can tell, everything stems from this, and we're still trying to figure out how it all works. But to say It therefore, because we don't have all the answers, therefore it must be some creator. That seems to be an illogical leap. That's not a logical leap, that's an illogical leap.
I don't know how a watch is made. I don't think any of us really know unless you're into Rolexes. But the vast majority of us see a watch that we like, and we pay a lot of money for these watches because of its mechanical ingenuity. It's kind of archaic, really, because you can get a digital watch, but we pay thousands more for that versus a digital watch because of its mechanical engineering, the precision. We respect.
Right, but you're still comparing a watch, which we know to be created, to the unit, and saying that the universe has got to be the same thing, and it's not. See, we have natural processes, right? If I take sodium and chlorine and mix them together, I get salt every single time. If I take chlorine, I get a poisonous gas every time. So I can take chemicals, put them together, and chemicals will do chemical things every single time without anything needing other than them coming into contact. And that can happen quite randomly. Most of the chemicals that we need, or many of the chemicals that we need to create life, exist on asteroids because they can't form inside of an atmosphere or where there's water. So they have to form out there, and they do in abundance. But these are natural processes, and we know they're natural because we know that there is no human behind it, which is why I said in the beginning, if you're going to make the teleological argument, you must either produce the designer or compare like to like. If you're going to say that humans are designed because that's the way the universe was designed, which is what you're saying, because we are a product of natural processes, then you have to compare universes to universes. You can't get around that by going, well, I don't have to because of watches. No. Humans, this planet, the universe, is the result of natural processes, of processes that exist because the universe exists. You've got to produce the designer, or you've got to show how that these natural, what we call natural processes in this universe, are actually designed by comparing them to a universe known to be designed or a universe known to be natural. You can't just jump to, because watches which exist and are known to be designed by humans, to then go, the universe is designed. That's a leap you can't make.
So it's almost
they're not the same.
Like, so you're saying a watch is designed because we know humans make watches, and all watches are designed by humans, and so we know this because watches just appear out of nowhere. Well, we do know that watches they're not of the same quality whatsoever of nature.
Have you ever met a watch? Have you ever met someone who wore? Let's assume you wore a Rolex watch. Have you ever met someone who created that specific watch or designed it? You probably heard about it.
No, but it doesn't matter, because you've probably never met the person who made your toothbrush either, and yet you know a human made your toothbrush. Toothbrushes
don't. That logically they had to have made it, exactly, because it didn't exist. It didn't just create itself.
Correct.
Just the function of a toothbrush.
Exactly. Logically, it had to happen. So what I'm saying is, you know that humans are necessary to create these items: watches, toothbrushes, cars, name it. And the parallel you're trying to say is the universe, therefore, was also created by some creator. And I'm saying to you that what we're trying to say is you don't know that it has to be a creator. All a universe needs is a universer, whatever that is. We can't explain that yet because we can only go so far back as Planck time. We know nothing more about how or what brought this universe into being. And so beyond that, we can make no conclusions about anything other than this universe is here. You can't say because the things in this universe create other things that therefore this universe had the same type of creator. It didn't, because number one, you know nothing about what this creator's like. You're just declaring there's a creator, but you can't define it. You can't know it. You can't say anything about it. It exists outside of time and space, and it's like we know nothing about this thing. So we're just throwing out this idea that it has to be a creator, and yet we don't know that because we know nothing about how the universe started.
Right. And the randomness of the universe kind of indicates that it's probably not created. But more importantly, energy, cannot be created or destroyed. E equals mc squared, which basically says that all matter is basically energy. So we don't need anything more to create the universe than the presence of energy, and we know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Therefore, we don't need a creator, and a creator can't create energy anyway because it can't be created or destroyed. We don't need a creator for anything. when we look at, you can go back 2,000 years and, you can ask someone from back then, well, why do storms happen? Oh, Poseidon got mad, or the storm god got mad. Why did disease happen? Well, which cursed my cattle? We have supernatural explanations for all kinds of phenomena. Here we are 2,000 years later, and not a single one of those explanations has stood the test of time. Science knows, we now know why storms happen. We know it well enough to be able to be fairly accurate in our forecasting of what's going to happen next with that. We know about the germ theory of disease. We know about viruses. We know why things get sick, and we know how to prevent it. We have vaccines now. Nobody knew what the moon was. Now we know what the moon was. We've landed on it. So given that track record, it is far more likely for any natural explanation, no matter how ridiculous you want to make it, to be true than any supernatural explanation, simply because we have no reason to think that there's a watchmaker behind the universe, because everything we see can be explained by the existence of the universe.
Right.
Now, if you want to say, why does the universe exist? I'm just going to point you at energy can either be created nor destroyed, and that the best hypothesis that we have from physicists who actually study this is it is possible and likely that is what happened. And
so when you start thinking about prior to playing time, even the definitions of whatever that creator is, it is something that exists outside of space, time, and matter, right? We know nothing about its qualities, nothing about its nature, unless you find this Iron Age book that tells you it's this God. But if you're not going to go there and you're just going to start with all you can reason with without pulling from some book, that it's just some creator that matches your parallel of a watchmaker, we don't know what it's like to exist prior to space, time, and matter, because that's not even a sensical idea to us. Like, we can't comprehend it. So whatever it was that brought this universe into being, if anything brought it into being, existed prior to playing time. It existed outside of space, time, and matter, whatever that means. So the point is, since we know nothing about the nature of what that is, all we can say is, if it was something, then it could have been a non-agent, a non-creative agent, just existing and bringing the universe into being. Like, it doesn't have to be a designer, because we know nothing about it, is my point. You can't just leap and say, oh, but it has to be. No, it doesn't have to be. We just don't know anything about it.
I wonder how it would be perceived of me if I said, you would probably think I was gaslighting you if I told you, oh yeah, this is a nice watch, and you told me, well, so-and-so built this watch, and I would tell you, no, that's not possible, because I've never seen a watchmaker. I don't know. I didn't see them build my watch.
You're going right back to the fallacy of watches are made by humans. We know this because all watches we have ever encountered have been made by a human. Worse for you, we can also go in and go, look, this watch is made from an alloy that we don't see in nature. Therefore, it had to have been created. We can look at that and go, this is made out of really, really complex, very, very small, very, very precise cogs. And we the only thing that we have in nature that looks close is a leaf hopper. And these cogs are way, way better than what the leaf hopper does. We could even look at, there are some animals near thermal vents in the ocean that have a iron shell, but that doesn't get you anywhere either by saying, oh, look at this creature over here that has an iron shell, because you're talking about an alloy. You're talking about two metals that have to get mixed somehow precisely that we don't know. And then you have springs and you have all of this stuff. But ultimately what you have is stuff that exists inside of the universe. And what we compare this watch to determine if it's natural or not is other things inside the universe. So you're still comparing like to like. But to say, well, this watch was created, therefore the universe has to be created. The watch is not the universe. It exists inside the universe. So you can't get there from where you're trying to. So every time you go back to the watch thing, it's the same fallacy.
It's the same fallacy. But yet, for me, I mean, you went to the universe. I really wanted to keep it on just comparing the taking the different alloys and the different metals and all these complexities that makes a watch, which is why I chose the watch, and not just anything like a toothbrush. But again, to reiterate, just our appreciation for such a beautiful thing and such a mechanical thing, that we know that it was because of the way it's designed. There's something different about the way it was designed. And so, again, the human eye, the way it is designed, it's parallel or similar to that of someone who created the watch. So for me to make the leap and say
the eye is not,
the
eye is nowhere close to the same as design of a watch. And we can look at that because a watch is as simple as it needs to be. It is an example of good design. Good design is as simple as it needs to be, and no more and no simpler. The human eye is not that. Absolutely. The human eye is absolutely badly designed. We know this because we have to fix it, right? Things that are well designed don't have to be fixed, especially just from normal usage. We do that because we don't have, because of friction and other things that come into play. But you can't compare these two. You can't say, well, the human eye is complex, a watch is complex. They're not the same complexity even. They're completely different complexities. We can look at the progression of the eye in various species, from a simple cell that detects light and reacts to light all the way to an eagle eye, which is, by the way, better than ours, and see, oh, look, here's the progression. And we can go, this is how it evolved, and this is why it evolved this way. We can see features in our eye of more primitive eyes. So there's no way to say that the eye and a watch are the same thing. The eye is a biological system. The biological system that it obeys the laws of evolution, that obeys chemistry, that obeys physics. All biology is chemistry, all chemistry is physics, all physics is quantum mechanics. A watch is not the same thing. It's not in the same category, because a watch, we know, is man-made. So you have to say, well, I have an object, I don't know if it's man-made or not. What do I have to do to determine if it's designed or if it's natural?
Joseph, so can you would, I'm hoping you will agree to this. Let's just say we found a watch. We don't know who the watchmaker is, to your point, right? Like, oh, we haven't seen who this watchmaker is. Do you think that we could potentially go and find that watchmaker and ask him to show us how he made the watch and watch him make another one?
Potential. Yes.
Sure, right? Because
Absolutely.
you can find human beings because they're all around us, and in all likelihood, even if we couldn't find that watchmaker, we could find another one and be like, hey, did the watchmaker make this? And they could be like, oh, obviously, let me show you how, right? So we can verify watches by the humans that we can go to, even if you don't know them today. Can you go somewhere and find the human maker, a human eye maker? Where are you going to find that? It's a completely different thing, man. You can't make that leap and say, oh, well, it has to be a designer, because you can't verify that in any way, shape, or form.
I think I can answer that question to the best of my ability, because I love that question and that analogy. Is that, of course, we can go, okay, this is the serial number to the watch. I want to find out who made this watch. In the same way, when I think about some pretty logical, reasonable person, I say, well, this eye thing, it's just marvelous. I see a rainbow. I'm like, how is that? Why do I feel anything about seeing a rainbow when there's nothing but colors in the sky that just magically came together, and right? Yeah, but for some reason, those magical combinations of colors and seeing a rainbow makes my eyes water. When I'm looking at a baby doing something silly, it makes me laugh because I'm seeing this child doing something insane that brings me joy. But it shouldn't bring me joy. I shouldn't feel anything.
Yeah, you're doing the same. You're doing the same thing, right? You're going from how eyes work to how the eye and the brain works, and that makes no sense.
Let's give him a second. He said he's getting there. So get there. Get to how you're going to show me that you can get to a creator for the human.
So in the same way, and the only reason why I brought those examples is because I wanted to know how I can see something like that and be moved by something like that. So it's more than just a biochemical process. I said, well, shouldn't it just be me observing like a camera pointing at something, an object, and feeling nothing? Why do I feel anything when I observe? Why is that different from a camera pointing at something and the camera not reacting the same way that I do as a human being? So in the same way, wait, hold on one second. In the same way you said,
but I need you to give me the straight answer. Can you go and find this human maker so we can observe and do another one?
I'm giving you. I'm doing the best I can because I'm just trying to get the format. You guys, when you ask me, okay, how if I can go to a watchmaker and ask the question, I guess since you want a straight answer, yes, I can go to the watchmaker, so to speak, of the eyes and ask the question. Because I know I didn't create the eyes. I know my parents had some involvement in it, but then I wonder, how do they see? How do they? So in the same way I'm asking, well, the serial number, what is the serial number? The serial number is our fingerprints. The serial number is the uniqueness of our eyes. And I'm asking the same question.
So are you saying parents are the creators of humans?
So I get that. I'm sorry.
Are you saying parents are the creators of humans? Because I agree. We can go to the parents and we can even watch them make another one.
Right, which is the beautiful, create and birth and all of that. That's
right. So the parents are as far as
that in itself is a miracle.
You can't get to a creator outside this universe. I'm still curious how you're going to go to a human eye maker that's not your parents.
How can I go to a human eye maker that's not my parents? Well, because someone had to have made, so it can go forever, but we won't go there. But in the sense that knowing that they're human as I am human, their eyes are created as my eyes were created. And yes, we're in a way
who created the eyes? Point us to the creator of the eyes. You're not getting us to the creator of the eyes, which is the question Alan asked you.
Well, the creator of if the parents create the body,
your parallel is
and I agree with that, and they created eyes.
Okay.
There still has to be something behind the eyes.
Yes,
to observe.
you're asserting that. You're asserting that, and we agree there is. It's called the brain, and the reason cameras don't react to rainbows and beauty is because they're not connected to a brain. Right. This is the same problem you run into. Is the eyes are one part of an entire system. A camera is not connected to the same system, so why would you expect them to react the same way?
So the camera doesn't have the semiconductors and all these things which is essentially the brain, the platform that makes the camera work.
It doesn't have an AI behind it. Yes, it doesn't have an intelligence behind it. Eyes have an intelligence. They're part of that system.
Eyes have an intelligence that's part of.
But I don't want to get off the track of the point, though.
Yeah,
we're still in the weeds here. I want you to show me how you're going to take me to the maker of this universe, the maker of the human beings, and the maker of the eyes that human beings have. If you're going to say that it's the parents of the parents of the parents of the parents, but somewhere down the line, those parents had to have some designer. Can you go to them? Just like I can take you to a watchmaker. Like, show me how we're going to empirically know whether or not this designer exists. How are you going to show this to us?
How can I show it to you? In the same way, I can't show you in the same way you can say there's a watch, there's a serial number, let's go to the watchmaker, let's get proof that this watchmaker exists. I can say to you that no, I'm not interested in seeing that. And to me, that doesn't make any sense why a watchmaker, it just exists in itself, by itself. So I can choose not to go down that path with you. I can choose not to want to know where the designer is, but feign as if I am interested in wanting to know where the designer is.
You're starting to dance, man. You got to see this. You're starting to dance. Now you're trying to make excuses. Yeah, you're trying to make excuses for why we don't want to see that this God exists or this creator exists, just like you wouldn't want to see the watchmaker exist. But that's not the same thing at all, because you have the capability of seeing that this watchmaker exists. You're just choosing not to.
Exactly.
I'm saying I'm willing to see this universe creator, but you haven't demonstrated how you can show him to me.
Your answer was,
you don't want to see it.
You're
that's
absolutely right.
Your answer to me literally was, well, you just don't want to see it. I'm asking you to show it to me. I'll see it clearly.
Okay. I can't. If you're asking me to take you, you're saying, let me take you to the watchmaker. But then at the same time, I'm telling you, well, show me proof of a watchmaker or show me proof. I can't, I can only go to the watchmaker for the proof, right? I can only go to the watchmaker for the ultimate proof. Therefore, just like it's an individual decision for you to go to the watchmaker to seek the proof, in the same way, I had to go to the watchmaker of the eye.
I know where you're going. So let me respond. I know where you're going with that, but let me just respond by saying the difference with where you're going is you and I both know there are humans called watchmakers. you're making a case for a God you haven't demonstrated, or a creator you haven't demonstrated exists yet to begin with, and then saying that thing I haven't demonstrated exists, you have to go to him and believe that he exists first so that you can be demonstrated that he made the human being. That's not at all equivalent, man, because you and I both know humans exist. I can literally take you to the watchmaker if we were that desperate to make a point, and that was what was going to convince you. I can make calls, we can find the watchmaker, we could go. You can't do that with this creator.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the proof. Since y'all pressing me about this proof,
Right?
it's gonna sound real cheesy.
Please tell me it's not coming from the Bible.
No.
Okay, thank
I
goodness.
don't read the Bible as much as I should, but I don't. The proof.
Oh, you should read it a lot. It'll make you an atheist.
Yeah.
I've read quite a bit, and it's some deplorable things, but that's a whole different subject. You made some comments, and I was like, I agree with that. That I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's a whole different thing. So, anyways, here's the proof for you, Alan. Proof is you. So if you want,
you literally just circle back to the beginning of the call.
Like I said, I know
we're proof that we exist.
Talking about
We're not proof that a creator exists. Just because something is complex doesn't mean there's a creator. Doesn't mean it has to be created. We've already discussed this.
Yeah, Joseph, right, exactly. That's why we could go to a watchmaker and demonstrate it, but you can't demonstrate your case that you just made. Like, would you agree that you agree that in order to conclude what you just said about a creator, you have to take it on faith?
Do I have to believe a watchmaker exists? No. There's faith in things that will.
I don't know what you just said. That doesn't make it. It's not at all anything I just said.
So I know that a watchmaker exists, right?
I don't need faith for you to know the watchmaker exists. All we need is empirical data. I can prove it to you by walking you up to the dude and saying, here he is, and he can prove to you that he makes a watch. You can't do that with empiricism at all when it comes to your creator. I'm asking you, would you admit that in order to believe this creator exists, you have to take it on faith?
For me, the evidence that he exists, and I know he laughed hysterically about it, and I kind of figured you would, but I see more value in you in the evidence that a creator, so to speak, exists, or at least made the eyes, because I'm looking into your eyes. I mean, why do you want me to get on camera?
Can you just answer my question? Is it faith or is it evidence?
Evidence can be both.
Fine.
So if you have evidence,
get you to a creator, or do you have to have faith to get there?
Okay, I'm sorry. Just when I say it can be both evidence and faith, there's evidence that gravity exists. I can't see it, but I have faith that it will work if I jump off a building. So I probably shouldn't try to test it.
That's not faith, because you know very well if you jump off the building, you're going to die.
Yeah, we can prove. We have multiple ways to prove that gravity exists. We don't have to see it. We have multiple ways to prove that a lot of things that we can't see exist. And you don't have the same thing for your God. You keep making the same mistakes. You keep going back to the same declarations without any evidence. You keep making the same claims over and over, despite the fact that we keep pointing out that everything you said is fallacious. You can't look at somebody and go, you can't look at complexity and go, therefore a designer. It doesn't work that way, because things can be complex without a designer. In fact, they're more likely to be complex without a designer, because good design is the most simple thing you can do and nothing more. Exactly. And there is nothing simple about the human body. There's nothing well designed about the human body. Nothing.
Joseph, can you see?
Wow, you really okay?
Can you see the universe with your natural eyes? This thing we're existing in.
Not without a telescope.
But you're still seeing it with your natural eyes, right? You can observe things in this universe naturally.
Yeah.
I
can't, right?
You can use your senses. You can empirically observe things in this universe with your natural eyes, correct?
Absolutely.
If you really wanted to, you could even fly to the moon if you wanted to, if you could find a way to get on a spaceship and get up there. Can you empirically observe with your natural eyes the spiritual, supernatural realm?
no more than I can prove that air exists, but I breathe it in all the time. I can't.
We can
prove
prove
it. I
air
know it
exists. Not only can we prove air exists, we know what it's made up of, right? We know it's roughly 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. We know this, and I say roughly because there's some trace elements in the atmosphere. We know it has weight. We've proven it. So you keep pointing at things that, yes, we know exist without having to see them. How do you detect this God that you claim exists? What's the evidence for your God? And you can't point at the human. You can't point at the universe, right? Because we already said why you can't do that. And you haven't produced a second universe to compare to. You haven't produced a creator to say, hey, yeah, I created it and here's how I did it. And everything that you've talked about, we can either show natural causes for in the case of wind and gravity, in any of the natural stuff. And when it comes to watches, we can prove that a watchmaker exists because we know how watches are designed. So you're not even coming close to what we're asking for. What we're asking for is, can you prove your God exists? And so far, the only thing you've given us is garbage arguments and garbage comparisons because you're not comparing like to like.
I'm just wanting to prove the question of whether or not you can see the supernatural without faith.
Well, there's a lot of feelings involved, which I know you say is a chemical reaction.
No, but that's okay. Your feelings. I'm sure you have all these feelings, and I'm sure you had experiences. Not going to knock those. I'm only going to ask you, how do you know that those feelings had anything to do with the supernatural? And again, I'm going to say it has to be taken on faith.
Well, I'm having faith that when I take in a breath, I'm breathing in this air that I know exists.
No, you're not. It's not faith.
Faith involved.
No.
If I didn't. But the point is, I don't. When I speak about faith, it's more like it's just. I'm confident that when I take my next breath, unless I'm underwater, I'm going to take in enough air to continue to survive the next second.
You're confident. So, why are you confident? Because you know how air works.
Right. You know how your lungs work, and you know that. But you again, we're asking you to prove that God exists, and you can't do it except to say, well, it's the same way I know that I breathe. It's experience. Well, what is the experience that proves to you that God exists?
I'm trying, and I know you guys are going like boom, 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 boom. It's like 2 against 1, but I'm trying not to feel that way. It's just kind of like, okay,
we're both saying the exact same thing. So
I use the air. I use the air analogy because, like in the same way, I'm having confidence.
He just froze.
Joseph, you still there? You froze up on us, bud. Oh, major bummer, man.
Yeah.
I was enjoying this conversation. Oddly enough.
I was going around a little bit, but.
Oh, he came back in the second thing. Let's bring him back in. Hey, all right, I'm going to remove you from that one. Hey, we lost you in the other one, and you popped in on this one. So.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
I like you out of the other one. You go ahead and keep going where you left off.
So the only reason I use the air analogy, like I used the eye analogy earlier, I try to keep it simple because we think about the simplicity of what air is and how it's the compounds of it. And I would think it's like, okay, this is interesting. This nebulous thing that we can't see for the most part, unless it's really cold outside, you can see the breath. It's like that in a sense. And most of the time, you're not able to see that which you breathe in and out. We have enough confidence to continue breathing in and out. In the same way, when you say, what is the evidence of that? This might be another cheesy one that I'm sure you're probably going to get a good laugh at, is that there has to be something that gives me life, that God is the breath of life. That which you're breathing in.
Can I ask you?
It's similar qualities in that you can't see it the way you would with your natural eyes. These same eyes you say are inefficient, which I agree, but there's something you can feel. Even you can feel air. You can feel it. Oh, it's kind of chilly outside, or I don't feel much of it. It's like that when you're having this thing.
Can I ask you a question?
That you say me to prove that I can't prove the
questions based on what you were just saying, if you don't mind. Let me just ask you something here. So when you have these experiences with breathing or going underwater, what's that?
That's the point is, I'm sorry, real quick. The point is, I can't prove any of the sensations that I feel when it comes to air or when I'm breathing in and out. I can't, I just know that I feel this way. So you're asking me to prove to you, hey, can you prove to me how I'm able to breathe?
Right. Okay.
Just take a deep breath.
So
I
let me,
can't do that.
right.
I
All right.
wish
So
I could.
are you able to conclude that you're able to breathe after you take a breath?
Absolutely.
All right. So you have empirical knowledge that breathing works because you were able to test it.
Absolutely.
All right. When you have a emotional experience that you attribute to God, did you draw that conclusion because you already previously determined that it must be God, or did that experience definitively say this has to be God? It couldn't be anything else.
I didn't make that jump. Personally, I didn't. I
No,
personally didn't.
I'm asking you if that's how you're doing it. Because here's the difference.
know.
You can empirically test the air analogy because you can do it yourself and you can say, oh, when I breathe, that's air. When you have an experience, you have no way of knowing that it's God. All you know is you had an experience, and the only way you can attribute that experience to God is if you pre-assumed it, if you preconditioned it in your mind to say, when this type of thing happens, that's God. That's not evidence. That's faith.
I would say if a God exists, he would want us to use the same reasoning and the same ability for logic as you are. He's not going to want to insult our intelligence. So he would want you to not have blind faith and like, oh, I just believe and I believe. To me, I think that's insane. That's not the way I approach coming to this, oh, the eye or the breathing. Simple concepts that at first was like, it gives me pause. So how is this possible? I tested it as much as I could. So it comes back to the question, well, how can you prove to us that there's a watchmaker behind the eyes or eye
All right.
maker?
So what was the test? What was the test you did to determine that God was the cause of your experience?
So many. And I mean, obviously I wouldn't go into a whole lot of things, but I would say it's
Look,
a combination.
if I were to ask you to test air for breathing, and you tried it and you fell dead because you couldn't breathe it, I'd be like, oh, well, shit, guess that didn't work. It's falsifiable. We can demonstrate that it doesn't work, but it worked, and we can try it over and over again, and there's no possible way to get out of it. When you do that, you take an air and you live. How did you test God in a way that's falsifiable to know for sure that your experience was caused by him?
And the way I tested it, it was a culmination of experiences that led to me, instead of doing the staggered breathing, because I'm not trusting that there's enough air for me to survive on, instead of doing just what you just did, I took a deep breath. And I know I'm using like metaphorical terms to describe this because it's hard to describe it. I decided to test him or test it, creator, whatever, and take that deep breath instead of being constantly on my toes, unsure of is me taking that, am I gonna get a lungs full of water next time I breathe in? It's me trusting that my next breath is going to go to my next breath and so on and so forth. That took a lot of faith and believing that that was even possible. So when I personally did it, again, it was a culmination of different things. For some people, it can be a single event. Oh, my mother, she almost died from cancer, and we prayed over her, and this happened. It can be a single event. For me, it was a series of events that led to evidence proving, for me personally, that there was a watchmaker behind my eyes, that there is a breath giver behind every single breath I take. In that sense, not literally with the air and everything. We know that's a physical, scientific process, but I say, okay.
Are you going to explain yet how you determined it was God? I'm still waiting for that. You're talking a lot about how you test things in the natural world. I'm asking you how you tested that it was a supernatural being.
That's the difficult part. I'm trying to explain how I was using. That's why I used the eye analogy, the watchmaker, the breath.
Joseph, there isn't an explanation. It's just called faith. You didn't have a way of test it. Because if you did, then you could test it right now and you can show all of us the process you went through, and all of us can see this supernatural being ourselves. Can you do that?
We all can see it, but you still have to make the choice to want to see that process, how it takes place.
Right. I have to have faith. I have to have faith first in order to have faith.
I would say, I don't think you have to go as far as you have to have faith in a
God.
God.
I have to believe it first in order to see it. That's what you just said. You have to believe it first in order to see it. That's ridiculous, man.
There.
How can you believe something first before you actually have some reason to believe it? But that's what you're telling me to do. I have to believe it first, and then you can show it.
Well, you guys wouldn't accept the fact that your own eyes are the evidence of it. If that's the same biochemical process, okay.
No, because you're still telling us that all of this is coming from this creator that we've yet to demonstrate. And you're saying we have to believe it first in order for you to demonstrate it. Well, if I already believed it, I wouldn't need you to demonstrate it. I'm asking you to give me a reason to believe it, not tell me that I just have to believe it.
I can't give you a reason to believe it any more than I can convince someone to not jump off a building because, hey man, you're gonna die. I can't. If someone is hell bent on jumping off that building and defying the laws of gravity for whatever reason, maybe they just want to end it. Who knows?
But that's the difference, is they have a reason why they want to jump. And it's not, I just don't believe in gravity. They actually have a reason. You're telling me I have to believe in this thing that you say exists in order for me to know it exists. How do you just believe something without having a reason to believe it?
For me, it wasn't a belief first. So you're saying, no, for me personally, it wasn't belief first, belief in God, very much anti-God. It wasn't belief first. It was just, again, the little things that a child would even ask. You get annoyed by it. Oh, why is the sky blue? Okay. Why do I breathe? They do all kinds of things that's like, okay, the simple things. I went back to that and said, okay, we can get all philosophical, scientific, all of these different biochemical, but when it boils down to it, the simple questions, just like Jim pointed out earlier, he said the sign of intelligence or intelligent design would have to be simplicity. I thought, like, well, it's got to be something. It's got to be simple.
No, it's not simplistic. It's got good design is as simple as possible and no simpler, right? And we can look at two things that we know are designed. We can look at a diesel engine, which has fewer components than a gas engine. Which one is the better design? The diesel engine with fewer components and therefore simpler, or the gas engine with more components and therefore more complex? Which is the better design?
Depends on what you want to use it for. Most
exactly.
of us drive cars.
Right. As simple as possible and no simpler. Diesel gives you different benefits than gas does. And so just because it's simple doesn't mean it's better. So it's got to be as simple as possible and no simpler. The eyes are not that. Nothing you have pointed to is that. What we see is unnecessary complexity. There's absolutely no reason for us as human beings to be forced to get energy from consuming plants and animals when there are plants that get energy from the sun. And we have created very simple systems that get energy from the sun. There's no reason for that. None. And yet here we are. We have this very complex way of generating energy that we have to go and eat, and not just any plants or any animals, right? So that's a problem. And there's nothing simple about it. And you keep coming back to the same things that we have already rejected and given you reasons why your argument about the watchmaker and an eye doesn't work in any way, shape, or form. And then you go and you confuse the eye and the brain for a system and say, well, cameras don't do that. Well, of course not. Cameras are just the eye in isolation. And so they work better. And that doesn't work either. You keep coming up with all this stuff that just doesn't work because you want to believe, and you're holding on to this because the belief is more important than the truth. The belief is more important to you than actually looking at what we've tried to tell you in multiple different ways. And you're still coming back to the same things that we've already completely rejected, arguments we've already completely destroyed. And not just us, arguments that Christians have been making since the teleological argument was first proposed and was utterly destroyed by everybody, philosophers everywhere. It's only Christians who hold on to this. It's only believers who hold on to it as a reason to believe, and it just doesn't work ever. Because in order to prove design, you must either show the designer, which you said you can't do, or compare this universe to another universe, and you can't do that either.
You can do it as long as you believe it first.
Right. Well, right.
No, there's no belief involved for me. And again, looking at the human eye and wondering how that's possible in the way we experience the human. How is these things? There's no belief involved in that. It's like it's there. I have eyes. You have eyes. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I didn't have to go in and
yeah, you said this already. When we rejected this argument soundly and thoroughly.
It sounds to me, Joseph, like you've had some really powerful experiences in your life, and somewhere along the line you've attributed them to God for whatever reason. Maybe he's real, maybe he's not, but for some reason you attributed them to God. And I'm going to assume, am I assuming correctly that you're a Christian? You believe in the Christian God?
You would assume wrong.
Okay. Which God do you believe?
I believe it's closer to how Christians describe it, but it's different enough to where Christians will call me not a Christian.
Okay, so you have your own God in your mind, some other God that they like. Nobody has the same God as you.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, so which God are we talking about? Can you tell us which God you're talking about? Because there's thousands of them. If it's not your own God, tell us which one it is.
I don't know how to. Can you tell? It's like asking me like which parent are you talking about? It's like I can only describe what that God has appeared to me and how he's shown himself to me and explained to me things thus far. There's some holes in that.
Let's start with the name. What's your God's name? That might help.
I would say God is a simple term, but we can do with Yahweh.
Okay, so we're getting somewhere. So the God of the Bible at the very least, and then you just have some tweets about it. Yeah,
the Jewish ideal of it, how the idea of we are the ones who got the monolithic or monotheistic version, whereas before then it was very polytheism and a lot of different things. So the idea that they supposedly got the one true God and that they were guided by that. And so it's like, okay, well, how do you know that's not a version of a God they created out of their head compared to all the ones before or since? I can't even tell you. I can't do that for you. I can only say, well, this is where I'm at now in terms of my understanding of what God is most likely. But even in the things in scripture, I have contention with, as the gentleman to the right has had contention with, about how Christians behave. I agree with him on a lot of things.
Yeah, so I'm not critiquing your God. I was just asking you what God it was because I'm not sure. So I'm asking you to define who he is and tell us so we can know, because it sounds to me like you do have your own unique God. Because you said it's like the Christian God, but you have all these differences. And I bet you if we were to go out in the street and ask 100 Christians if they share the same unique qualities that your God does, they would probably be like, oh, no, I don't agree with him on that.
Of course not. That's why you have a lot of different sects within Christianity, the Baptists and Catholics. So even they amongst themselves don't agree with the same, right? So it's the same in a sense with me, but it would also be the same with you as well as Elliott, with Jim and Al. It would be the same with everybody in the sense it's personal. And it's like, well, that's not a.
This is the point I'm making, though. It sounds to me like you had some really powerful experiences in your life. You attributed them to a God, and it's a God that is very reminiscent to what you really like about this God. It's the kind of God that is good in your mind, and you've associated him with these events so deeply that over the course of time, and I'm going to guess they happen many times to you over the course of years, and there is something called reconsolidated memory. And what happens when we consolidate a memory? It's like a Word document. The first time you type it up, it's not quite what it's going to become after 50 redos. And every time you fix it, you resave it, forgetting what the original version actually was. So that by the time you have the final version, or the version you have currently, it's significantly different to what it originally was, because your mind projects back into the scenario that was very emotional to line up with a belief you have currently. We do this all the time with things, especially emotional experiences. So it sounds to me like what happened is somewhere along the line. And let me ask you another question before I go any further. Did you grow up in church?
I grew up in the synagogue, which is why when you say Joseph, I said, wow, I haven't heard that in years. But
suppose people are just, well, that's great. All right, so you did grow up in an environment with God being taught to you.
Right.
So from childhood, much like me, God was just assumed. You never had an opportunity to, without the indoctrination, to find God on your own. You just already assumed he existed, just like I did. So you added this God to these experiences, and probably some of them you didn't even add to the experience when it happened. You probably read some of them back into the experience over the course of time as you re-updated this Word document, so to speak. So the memory has been reworked so many times. So it's like a fish story, right? You now see God so deeply entrenched in all of these experiences that you just can't see it any other way. When in reality, if you had the ability to go back in time and relive those experiences and see them, you might be like, oh crap, this isn't really what happened. I had an experience when I went on a mission trip with when I was a teenager with my youth ministry. And I was taught that Satan wants to stop us at all costs because you're doing missionary work. That was just a thing. Satan and his demons are always after you when you do missionary work. And we were prayed up, and we were told that the devil's going to try to stop us. And so I was like, oh man. So, you already have this thought in your head. And here I am, I'm in bed one night at the mission trip, and I feel wind like kind of blowing on the sheets of on the bed cover of my bed spread. And I feel it hitting there, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I look over and I see the curtains moving, and I'm freaking out. And I'm like, Satan is here. And I ran out, and I got the whole youth ministry together, and we started quoting verses like, this kind can only be cast away by prayer and fasting, because it's the special kind of demon. And so like we went into prayer and fasting, and we were convinced that Satan was out to get me that night. Turns out, when I look back in honesty, it was just an experience with a curtain, a bedspread, and an oscillating fan. The oscillating fan was just moving shit in my room. But as a Christian, I kept feeding that story into my mind because of a presupposition that I was taught. But it really wasn't that. So my challenge to you, and you don't obviously need to deconvert today and fall on your knees and be like, you're right, I'm an atheist. I'm not asking you to do that right now. I'm just saying, think about some of this, because it very well could be that you've been indoctrinated from childhood like I was. You had some experiences, you read your God into it, and you remolded your God over time to make him make more sense to you. And now you're certain that all of this was true. Maybe it was God, but probably not. But I can't say for sure. You're going to have to be the one to decide that. But there just doesn't seem to be any good reason why you would conclude that, especially when, given the chance here to demonstrate that a supernatural being exists, you just can't, other than saying, well, you have to believe first, and then I can show you.
No, I never said I could show you anything. I've always made the point, like 3 times already, that the proof that's for you will be the proof that's sufficient for you. And it is not going to, there's some universal truths that is scientific. Oh, okay, this maker, okay, whether you believe it or not, to me, it just is like this complex. Or it can just be that empirical truth, that truth that's personal, things that no one else can understand or relate to, that only you can. But you're right, in the sense that it could just be as simple as a fan blowing in the wind, and then now you feel like I got egg on my face. Oh, how can it be a God? Now that I look back on it, how stupid of me. God doesn't exist. Or, obviously I'm sure that wasn't the only moment, but I'm sure there was a series of moments that led, just like there was a series of moments that led up to where I'm at. It's a series of moments that led down to where you're at, in the sense that I'm believing less and less. For me, I'm believing more and more, because I needed that proof. Now,
So I wasn't believing less and less. I was believing more and more too. At least I thought. And then one day it was like a cliff. My whole faith just fell off. It was weird. I can't even express to you how weird it was. How I thought I was the strongest believer in the world, and then it was. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I will say, for me, natural evidences point to natural things. They don't simply say, well, since we don't know what natural thing this points to, it's got to be supernatural. Like, that's just a weird thing to do. Natural things point to natural things. That's just the way it works. Supernatural things have no demonstration. Like, natural things don't naturally point to supernatural things. So whatever conclusions you're drawing about this supernatural designer is basically just based on this idea that you think there has to be a designer of this universe. And I feel like Jim has adequately explained to you all the reasons why that's not necessary. But even if there was a designer and we could prove it without a shadow of a doubt that this universe was designed, that still doesn't necessitate a supernatural being. There could be some other designer that isn't supernatural, that is natural, existing in the whatever the laws of logic and reason are in the universe, whatever that is, before this universe. Like, my point is, we still know nothing about anything prior to Planck time. We only know the laws of physics in this universe. We know nothing about the laws of physics in the cosmos beyond Planck time. So even if it was a designer, how do you know it's this God? You've just concocted it and decided it is. That's called faith. That's not evidence.
faith is evidence. Faith is the proof of evidence.
Faith is the evidence of things unseen, right? It doesn't say, Hebrews 11:1 doesn't say faith in the evidence of things unseen. And it doesn't say faith is the confidence in the evidence of things unseen. It simply says faith is the evidence. That's all. And the Bible does this because whoever wrote it knew that there was no way to actually demonstrate a supernatural being through actual evidence. So they said, let's make faith the evidence. If you believe, then you know God exists, which is essentially what you told me earlier. You just have to believe first. That is exactly what faith is. Just believing because there's no other reason to.
No other reason. I don't know. For me, I couldn't go from belief to faith. For me, even though raised Jewish in the synagogue, that whole God thing, I just knew how to read the Torah. I didn't really understand what it meant. I just was good at reading it, reciting it, bar mitzvah and all that. But that doesn't mean that I was trained that way. But I never grasped onto it. It wasn't until I was late 20s, where it's like very aggressively anti-God, like militant. In a way that you guys are not. I'm kind of envious because I wish I was milder in the way I did. Obviously, it doesn't exist because of the things that happened. But so what made those things happen? It was just so personal. It got so personal to where all I could do when people asked me that question was draw what I saw in a vision, I guess like Joseph in the Bible, which shocked me. I didn't believe these things, but I couldn't deny the images, so I drew it. And I would use that. What did you see? I can't explain. This is what I saw. And they see it. And I'm set. I lost that photo. But people I showed it to saw it. And it made them say, okay, there's something there. Because they knew how I was and my hatred of God.
Oh, sure. The other problem with that, though, is there's no way for you to know that prior to that moment, you were just possessed by some demon that was making you be horrible. And then he finally let you go, and Joseph became a good person. You've already had a preconceived idea that has to be God when you really don't know what caused that moment. It could have been something horrible letting go of you. You just don't know, is the point I'm making. It sounds like you got a lot to think about, and you really should take some time to do that. But I do want to encourage you to come back sometime because you are a delight to talk to. And, this is a place where everybody knows your name. So this is the right place to be. But before we let you go, Jim, I want to give you a chance to finish out if you have anything else to say to Joseph before he leaves.
No, we just kept going around in circles, and you kept bringing up things and not really addressing the arguments that I made, and keep coming back to examples where I attempted to point out that they fail, and not dealing with trying to fix the failures or addressing the failures. And I think you should do that. I think you take a good hard look at it. So
not an apologist. But
this video will be posted again if you want to watch it back and check it out. And you know what? Go back, think through some of it, think through his arguments, and come back again. We'd love to have you back. Like I said, I'd love to have you back, especially if you take some time to think about it. Maybe you'll have some better arguments, or maybe you'll realize that all of this was something you needed to deconvert from, and come back and tell us that too. Either way, we'd love to have you back.
Yep, absolutely.
So, Joseph, thank you so much for being a part of this show tonight. We hope you have a great night, buddy. All right. Well, that about does it for the night, Jim. Look at this. We have a tie between life is better with God and life is better without God. Interesting. And then we just have the 20% at the same or with or without God. That one I still find intriguing. Hopefully, I wish that person would have called, but it's it's the end of the night now, so we're gonna end it. But fascinating, 50-50 split. I guess that just tells you we probably have same amount of Christians watching as non-Christians. That's usually the way it falls. But I was interested because I thought possibly there might be an atheist out there that still thinks life with God was better, because I've encountered them. They're like, oh, I miss him so much, and he was so much better with God, So that would have been a fascinating conversation as well, but nobody called in with that. So, we just got another. We just got another. Life is better without God. Yes, we win, Jim.
Thanks, Ollie, man. I'm sorry we didn't get to Jewish apologetics. I would have liked to have seen what his argument was, since we just kept going in circles with Joseph. So,
well, maybe he'll call back at some point, and maybe we'll be lucky and have you on again.
Okay, sounds good.
Really appreciate you filling in for Elliott tonight, man. It was a real delight to have you. And everybody watching, thank you so much for being a part of the show. As always, we want to thank the patrons of Skeptic Haven. Thanks for being a part of that and helping support the work that they do. We want to also thank the members of YouTube for supporting us in that way. The crew behind the scenes that's always doing a great job on all these shows every day that you can see here on the screen. That's the lineup each week. So don't miss any of the shows that we have here on Skeptic Haven. And don't forget to go and join Deconversion Nation on Facebook. We would love to have you be there. It is a great opportunity for both Christians and non-Christians to have conversation over there. Think of it as the reverse of going to church. When you go to church, you invite your non-Christian friends to come and hear the message and ask questions, but they're not there to disrupt. They're there to learn. Same type of thing. You come over there, the whole point is an opportunity for Christians to come into an environment where they can ask questions and hear the answers from atheists without it becoming a bloodbath. So we hope that you'll join us over there, Deconversion Nation on Facebook. And it looks like I have power flipping in and out here. This is weird. So it's a good thing we're probably coming in end, because I don't even know if I'm still live. I hope I am. Hope I didn't miss any of that.
You're still live.
All right, perfect.
Or I can see you anyway. I shut down the YouTube screen, so I don't know if we're still streaming or not. But.
Yeah, I think we are. Looks like we still are. So, all right, Jim, do you want to give us any last-minute words, just some more pearls of wisdom before we take off?
No, not really. I mean, stay skeptical, I guess, and question everything.
Absolutely, and I love that. Remember, every Christian has their own version of Christianity. We're here to unravel your conversion. And you had one more thing to say?
I was going to say, if everybody has a different definition of God, is that kind of like if every color is blue, is there any other color? Wouldn't it be better to say there is no definition of God if everyone has their own definition? So.
Everybody does have their own. Everyone has their own version, though. It really is true. So, and that's what we're here for, to help unravel your conversion. That's what we do here. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. to talk about morality. Let's have some